Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking something pretty fascinating. We're going to look at how abstract academic geometry, literally lines on a graph, actually explains the very human, everyday behavior of hoarding cash during a crisis. We're exploring a foundational concept in microeconomics called the Edgeworth box, and we're going to see how just a tiny dose of psychological reality completely shatters the way we view market freezes. All right, let's dive right into this frankly mind-bending paradox. Imagine if one single person controls absolutely everything in an economy. I mean, everyone else has literally nothing. Could we ever call that situation efficient? Now, intuitively, your brain is probably screaming, absolutely not, right? It sounds like a total systemic failure, literally the furthest thing possible from efficiency. While, believe it or not, classical microeconomics says yes. Under standard assumptions, that exact extreme scenario of total inequality is perfectly mathematically efficient. Wild, right? But today, we're actually going to solve this paradox. We'll uncover the hidden mechanics of our economy, specifically by looking at how the very definition of money changes how we all behave when the pressure's really on. Section 1. The Edgeworth box paradox. Okay, so first things first, we have to grasp Pareto efficiency. It's a fancy academic term, but it really just means a state where helping one person mathematically requires harming another. If you can trade goods so both people are happier, well, you aren't Pareto efficient yet. But the exact moment any further trade creates a winner and a loser, boom, the model hits maximum efficiency. And classical economists, in their infinite mathematical wisdom, absolutely loved the neat, rigid perfection of this endpoint. Now notice the diagonal contract curve slicing right through the middle of this classic Edgeworth box. Imagine person A starts at the bottom left and person B is up there at the top right. That diagonal line, it shows all the mutually beneficial trades where both parties are totally satisfied. But look really closely. That line points directly to those extreme corners where one person has absolutely everything and the other person has absolutely nothing. At these extreme corners, the fully endowed person, the one with all the stuff, completely refuses to trade because any exchange would literally be a loss for them. They already have everything they want. And since the other person has zero to offer, no mutually desired trade even exists. Because you can't make the person with nothing better off without taking away from the person who has everything, the model technically, and very rigidly, labels this harsh reality as Pareto efficient. It's an efficiency born out of a total, complete lack of voluntary trade. Moving on to Section 2, Barter and Say's Law. So in a pure barter system, there's this thing called Say's Law. It basically dictates that you only offer goods because you want to demand something in return. There's no such thing as idle supply. You don't just bake 100 loaves of bread and sit there staring at them. You bake them strictly because you want to trade them for, say, shoes or apples. If you don't want shoes or apples, you simply don't supply the bread. Therefore, according to the theory, a lack of trade simply means a lack of desire to trade. Everyone is just supposedly content with what they have. But here is the heavyweight clash. Classical microeconomics, resting on Say's law, assumes you just keep trading until you're completely satisfied, making money just a neutral tool. But Keynesian macroeconomics steps in and warns us, wait a minute. Sometimes people halt trading just to hide their wealth in liquid cash. They actually value the safety of holding onto money way more than the goods they could theoretically buy with it. Which brings us to Section 3, the neutral money middleman. When economists first add money to the Edgeworth box, they treat it strictly as a numeraire. Now, that's just a fancy French word saying it's a completely neutral middleman. It's used instantly for transactions, not as some asset you can just stash under your mattress. You can't hold on to it for comfort. It literally has zero utility on its own. It exists for one reason, to immediately facilitate the swap of good A for good B. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when money is just a numeraire. See that solid line cutting across the box? That is the strict, rigid budget line. It totally forces agents to trade along that exact line at good in prices until they hit that Pareto efficient intersection. Because money cannot be saved or hoarded in this specific model, all your purchasing power has to be spent right now. And that keeps those extreme corners technically efficient because people are still forced into a state where they either trade to satisfaction or they literally have nothing left to trade. All right, Section 4, Exploding the Box. So, what actually happens when we inject a little psychological reality into this mathematical perfection? Well, the plot twist arrives when we allow money to provide what's called liquidity utility. This means holding on to cash actually gives people a real feeling of safety. Suddenly, money is no longer just a hot potato you instantly pass to someone else to buy bread. It becomes a highly desirable asset all by itself. Basically, it becomes a hiding spot.
When we add money as a true store of value, the whole two-dimensional box literally explodes into a third dimension. See that new arrow dropping down, labeled M for money balances? We've just added a z-axis. And in this new liquidity region, that relentless mathematical push toward that perfect diagonal tangency, it just stops. People step right off the goods plane and retreat into cash. They could technically keep trading to reach a mathematically better outcome for goods, but they rationally choose not to, simply because they value the safety of cash so much more.
Section 5. Why we hoard cash. So when people are what economists actually call wealthy hand to mouth, which means they own a lot of illiquid assets, like a house or a massive retirement fund, but they have very little actual cash in the checking account, they start acting as if they're completely broke. They completely halt their trading and buying just to stay safely inside that liquidity region. So they might have vast wealth on paper, but because they crave that liquidity so badly, the economic action just stalls out, stopping far short of that classical, efficient tangency line. And, the data actually backs this up beautifully. Studies show these illiquid but technically wealthy households have a massive marginal propensity to consume. We're talking near 30% once they finally get their hands on liquid cash. Think about it. If they were truly satisfied, like the classical model suggests at an efficient resting point, they wouldn't just rush out to spend new cash. This high percentage proves they aren't fully satisfied at all. They're just paralyzed by a lack of liquidity. So, we can finally resolve our central paradox. When trade stops at the extremes, or when the market just completely freezes up, it is not always because the market has reached some beautiful, perfectly efficient equilibrium where everyone is happy. Actually, in the short run, it's often because human beings are prioritizing the sheer safety of cash over the benefits of trade. Inaction isn't always efficiency, folks. Sometimes it is simply a rational fear of uncertainty. So as you look at real-world market freezes, whether it's a housing stall, a stock market plateau, or just a general economic slowdown, I want to leave you with this question. Are we really observing true economic efficiency where everyone has exactly what they want? Or is it just a massive collective retreat into liquidity? Thank you so much for exploring the Edgeworth box with me today, and I really hope this changes how you view the hidden gears of our economy.